Mr. Madhukas Kalin, may you please stay on the stage because you're going to start off with the first presentation anyway. So the first presentation today, guys, is RiverBox, How to and Showcase of AgriTech FoodTech Startup by Mr. Madhukas Kalin right here. He is the president and CEO of FoodTech Inc. So without further ado, ขอเสียงปรบมือด้วยค่ะ
Swadika. Thanks very much. My name is Madhukas Kalin. I'm the CEO and founder of FoodTech, and we are the creators of the RiverBox. So ever since I was a child, I've been both fascinated and curious with nature. And I spent most of my time as a kid at my cottage in Canada, where the days consisted of getting up in the morning, going into the forest, cutting down trees, making firewood, and then the afternoons, typical childhood, chasing after snakes, turtles, frogs, whatever I could get my hands on. And so as I grew, I started to just realize how big of an impact humanity was having on the environment. I started to realize that humans had put themselves outside of nature, that we thought of ourselves as being above nature, and that it was only there to serve us as a resource. And so as you can imagine, as I grew, this started to form a resolve in my mind, one that made me believe and start pushing towards trying to change how we as humans live, because only then could we really start striving towards a sustainable future. So it was these events that really led me to start doing an undergraduate in applied mathematics and marine biology, and later start my PhD, which I'm finishing this summer. I also worked for the National Research Council of Canada, where I spearheaded a nationwide initiative that looked at using algae as a source of biofuel and other bioproducts. So it was this combination of events that really led me to found FoodTech in 2010. We set out with the goal to develop a high-yield, simple algae farm, one that would allow anybody to grow algae anywhere in the world. Our vision was to become a world-leading expert, a leader, a voice in the field of algae technology. We believed that algae, with its vast potential and application in some of the most important and complex industries in the world, held the key to allowing us to start integrating with nature, pushing towards more of a sustainable future. So this is microalgae, the result of 3.5 billion years of evolution. These little guys live in some of the most extreme habitats on the planet, from underneath the polar ice caps in sub-zero temperatures to the bottom of the ocean in complete darkness, to tropical regions around the world. Now, the cool thing about algae is that they convert organic waste into proteins, fats like omega-3s, and carbohydrates. So what if we could use this ability and this adaptability of algae to solve some of our complex challenges? When you grow algae, there are so many uses. It can actually be kind of frustrating to have too many options. You don't know what to do with it. It's been labeled as a superfood. You can buy it in the grocery stores as a powder, a pill, a paste. You can eat it. It's also typically very high in oil, which means it's a great replacement or alternative to petroleum. We can create biofuels, biogas, bioethanol, biodiesel out of it. Additionally, it's a great fertilizer and feed additive for the agricultural industry. Lastly, it also has the ability to produce very specific and very high-value bioproducts for the pharmaceutical and nutraceutical industries. But before we can really start to produce any of these products, we need to know how to grow algae. And we need to do it extremely cheaply. And this has been the industry's challenge since day one, and the challenge which we at FoodTech have focused on solving. At FoodTech, we've created the RiverBox, the world's first modular, scalable, and rapidly deployable algae farm. It can be used in the aquaculture, the nutraceutical, the pharmaceutical, the fuel, chemical, and the personal care markets. Our system is capable of producing 2 to 5 times the yield in comparison to our competitors using only 10% of the water. Furthermore, we use algae that's local to the production sites, meaning we don't run the risk of creating environmental disasters through invasive species. We've shown that our system is capable of using algae everywhere from the high Arctic all the way down to the low Antarctic. Now, the third benefit of our system, I think, is the one that I'm most proud of, and it's the simplicity of the system. It doesn't matter whether you have 3 PhDs or you speak English, the whole system is plug and play, so anybody can use it. And just to top that off, when we need to harvest our algae, no downstream water separation technology is required. We just use gravity. The RiverBox can be deployed in 3 primary forms. The first is a modular containerized system, so your typical shipping container. The second is either outdoors or in a greenhouse, so it takes advantage of natural sunlight. And the third is more of your traditional brick and mortar style building. So think of a big factory or a warehouse. Regardless of how we deploy it though, algae is grown the same way, in that algae are grown on multiple tiers stacked on top of one another in extremely thin, dense cultures. What this means for us is that we get optimal light penetration, which translates to really high growth rates. In addition to this, as I alluded to earlier, when we harvest our algae, we don't need any downstream water processing technology like a high-speed centrifuge. Because there's so little water and so much algae, we can rapidly separate the two using gravity alone. So what all of these things kind of add up together is about a 70% cost reduction in the production of algae. Not only that, but because of the design of our system, we can set the system up to be a flow-through system, meaning we can have dirty wastewater coming in at the top and clean water coming out at the bottom, with the algae purifying the water in the middle. At SaberTech, we've really realized that in order to create and solve some of the most complex challenges in the world, we need to start doing things differently. We need to start thinking sustainably. So one of the unique things about our system, and the reason why it really starts allowing us to integrate with nature, is its ability to adapt and conform to a wide variety of resources. So what I mean by this is every user who uses one of the systems is going to have different resources available. This could be the amount of land that they have, the type of climate they live in, so tropical, subtropical, temperate, what type of inputs they have available. So is there waste CO2? Are we using fresh water, brackish water, or salt water? And lastly, what type of algae grow in that region? By developing a system that can utilize and adapt to any combination of these resources, we've created a system that is truly globally deployable. And this is when things start to get exciting for me. So when you have a piece of technology that you could put anywhere in the world with such a diverse range of applications, you can start to imagine a completely different world. A world where farmers could produce all of their own feed and fertilizer on site. A world where dense cities, highly populated regions could purify not only their air but their wastewater in the heart of downtown without having to ship it outside of the city to a waste treatment facility. You could start to imagine a world where we could redesign entire supply chains, where we could co-locate producers next to their end users, eliminating a massive portion of the supply chain, both reducing our carbon footprint and environmental impact, but also reducing costs associated with that. So in essence, we can enable a local everywhere economy with healthy, profitable microeconomies around the world. So our value proposition to the world, what we offer, is the ability to grow low-cost, on-site algae biomass worldwide. And we do this by licensing our system to users in various industries around the world. In addition to that, we also offer our users a maintenance package, which not only lets us help set up the system, monitor it on an ongoing basis, but also optimize the system, improving our users' experience, productivity, and eventually profits. Now, I think that every single startup has the exact same problem in that we all think our technology is the best in the world, and we all think we can do about 100 things at once. And this is particularly true for when going to market. A lot of people, when they develop a piece of technology that's applicable to a wide variety of industries, want to launch their product into all of those industries at the same time. But I think it's incredibly crucial to remember that we all need to focus. Because even if your product is useful to a wide variety of industries, we need to start somewhere. So as a startup, we need to learn how to focus as best we can. And for us, our focus was the ocean, as it was not only close to the hearts of all the employees and team members inside SaberTech, but also to the core of the technology. The oceans make up about 70% of the Earth's surface. They're responsible for producing over 85% of all the oxygen in our atmosphere. In addition to that, they produce 20% of all the protein that we as humans consume. Yet despite this, we are destroying our oceans every single day. Overfishing is responsible for a 66% decline in the wild fish stocks. We harvest over 100 million tons of fish from the oceans every single year, pushing new species closer and closer to extinction each year this passes. As a result of this, the aquaculture industry is now responsible for producing over 50% of all human-consumed fish. And this is going to do nothing but grow, expecting to reach over 60% by 2030. Now, obviously, the aquaculture industry is a step in the right direction. It definitely is. But the reality of it is that the aquaculture industry is not sustainable. In fact, most aquaculture farms rely on chemicals and antibiotics and pesticides in order to keep their fish okay and healthy. In addition to that, we also feed wild-caught fish to our farmed fish. So we're not reducing the amount of fishing that we're doing in the oceans. Instead, we're just catching wild fish to turn them into feed to our farmed fish. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense if we're trying to save the fish in the ocean. The other challenge that the aquaculture industry has is waste production. There are two main forms of waste that I like to focus on. The first is physical waste, so old netting materials that gets released into the oceans and float around and cause a world of different problems. And the second is the most important, which is the biological waste. So this could be feces or uneaten feed. There's so much waste being released into the oceans that now each year, multiple times a year, we're getting massive harmful algae blooms in the ocean that are not only toxic to wild, but also farmed fish and humans. In addition to that, the algae can grow so densely that it not only consumes all of the oxygen in a region, but physically clogs the gills of the fish, causing widespread mortality both in farms and in the wild. So yes, the aquaculture industry is a step in the right direction, but it's not sustainable yet. And this is a big, big problem, specifically because how much we all depend on this industry, all of us. I'm not just talking about the farmers for their livelihood or the environmentalists from a conservation perspective. Because at the end of the day, if nature doesn't exist, we don't exist. If our practices aren't sustainable, every single person worldwide is going to feel the ramifications. It's going to have a negative effect for all of us. So just to recap a little bit, overfishing has depleted most of the fish in the ocean. As a result, the aquaculture industry is now exploding because of the demand, producing over $100 billion a year industry. But because we're still feeding wild-caught fish to farmed fish, we now have another problem, which is a protein shortage in the ocean. A shortage that's so big, the cost of protein for feed has tripled in the last 10 years, causing the largest feed producers in the world to start panicking and aggressively searching for alternative and sustainable protein sources. Now, over the years, a lot of different options have been tried: slaughterhouse byproducts, land-based proteins like soy. People have even started to feed chicken to fish. Now, I don't know in what world feeding chicken to fish is sustainable, but it does not make sense to me. But regardless of what options have been tested, no option has shown as much potential as algae has. Algae are capable of offering a truly sustainable protein source, one that the fish would actually rely on in nature, so it's a perfect fit. We can farm algae sustainably. It uses significantly less land than most of the traditional seed crops. We can use our waste streams as a feedstock for the algae. And lastly, we can use land that doesn't compete with the food industry. So it's basically a perfect fit. Now, our solution is to enable every single fish farmer around the world to not only treat their own waste, but to produce all of their own feed on site, creating a completely sustainable closed-loop system. Not only just reducing our environmental impact, but also increasing the health of both wild and farmed fish, as well as increasing the profits for the farmers. So all in all, this equates to about a $16.2 billion opportunity that we're looking at. Now, I know being a startup, $16.2 billion sounds absolutely incredible, and I get super excited, and it just seems like, we could take over the world with this big of an opportunity. But it's not really as simple as that. So there are about 12 million farms that make up the bulk of this opportunity for us, most of them located here in Southeast Asia. But what most startups forget is that even to capture a very small portion of that market opportunity requires a huge amount of resources. I'm talking local know-how, finance, business development, marketing, branding, engineering, production and manufacturing. Most of these things we as startups do not have in-house. It's crazy to think that a small group of 2 or 3 or 4 people just starting a company has the knowledge and experience to do all of this. And so unfortunately what tends to happen is that startups, even if they have some of the best technology in the world, they end up failing because they haven't thought through exactly how they're going to go to market. Every single nitty-gritty detail, step by step. So this is really where partnerships come into play. And it's specifically important for us in the food and agricultural industry. And it's because of the size of the industry. And I'm not just talking about the money opportunity, but the physical volume of this industry and also the physical disbursement of this industry. It spans entire countries, continents even. And that requires an immense amount of manpower and experience in order to capture that market. So for us, we've spent the last 6 years dedicating a large portion of our time to solidifying and growing a very strong core network of strategic partners and collaborators. So we've created our own little natural ecosystem where each component facilitates the other and helps the other. Now the benefit that this has is that it allows us to operate as though we were a multinational conglomerate, but we still maintain the flexibility and adaptability and speed as a startup has. The other benefit that you get from these strategic partnerships is that it allows us to recover and to get back up after setbacks or failures. And I think every single startup, not only in this room but also in this entire event, can agree that setbacks and failures are a very common thing for us. Now these can be small setbacks or failures or large. We could be talking about a business plan not getting done on time, or we could be talking about an entire research and development program failing, or a market launch failing. If we as startups cannot get back on our feet and either redirect our focus or do a pivot if we need to, or just try again as fast as we can, we fail before we've even had a chance to begin. So the result for us of this partnership came in a very interesting but incredible and exciting way, and that was with our IP portfolio. When we started out, we focused on one line of IP, everything related to the RiverBox, right? Everything related to farming algae. But after a couple years of growing and expanding our collaborations and our partnerships, we looked back and we realized that we not only had one avenue of intellectual property, but we had 6 avenues of intellectual property, all being developed in parallel. Not only could these avenues both work together, but they could be commercialized individually. And this essentially allowed us to compete with some of the biggest algae producers in the world, despite being a much younger and smaller company. Additionally, it allowed us to capture more of the opportunity because the IP that we started developing included IP related to the beginning all the way to the end of the algae supply chain. So if I can offer one piece of advice from one startup to another, regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur, a startup, or a government, you cannot underestimate the value of a partnership. Put in the time, put in the energy, put in the money. Even if it's a phone call, a Skype meeting, sitting down at a coffee shop, or being at a conference and exchanging business cards and saying, "Hi, my name is Mather." Because you never know when that person or organization will be able to help you down the road. A perfect example is Dr. Karsadeh here. We met completely randomly in Stanford last year. I never expected to meet him. And now here I am in Thailand, getting the opportunity to meet him and his team and explore various opportunities for both his organization and my own. So these people can help with things like leveraging funds, sharing experiences. You know, if they've made a mistake that you haven't made, they can warn you about it or tell you about it. They can help you find new employees or teammates for your company, reduce your overhead, and also just expand your overall capacity to move forward. So the last thing that I actually want to say about partnerships is about investors. And I think there's a very big, what the word is, people just make the mistake of not including investors as being a partner. And that's a big mistake. An investor can be your most valuable partner. Do not look for somebody who just wants to write you a check and walk away. Because although in the beginning this sounds amazing, and it sounds great because as entrepreneurs we all think we're the best at everything, and we don't need any help, right? But down the road, you will need their help. Because like you, they've been through what you're going through. Not only every year, but every day. So they can help you both from a personal level and from a team perspective get through the difficulties that you're going to face along the way. The next thing that I want to remind people specifically about in the food and agri industry is that I feel there are certain questions that we need to ask ourselves constantly. And the reason behind this is that we are all growing, not only as individuals, but as organizations. Through experiences, through interactions with other people, we're growing constantly. And so it's important that we ask ourselves, what are we doing to make this world a better place? Are we doing enough? Can we do more? Furthermore, who do we need to partner with in order to achieve these extremely bold visions that everybody at this entire event has? How do I get to meet that person? So it's important to ask these things every single day, to keep this in the front of your mind so that we all don't stray from our big visions of changing this world. So the last thing that I want to leave you with is the reason why I get up every day and I'm way too excited, even if I know it's going to be the worst day of my life. And it's about the vision. And the vision of a new era of sustainability. And the fact that this vision isn't actually a vision. It's a reality. And that reality starts here, today, with all of us. I'm Mather from SaberTech, and if you share a vision or want to chat more, I'd love to chat. Thank you. Can I have some water?
ค่ะต้องขอบคุณมากๆเลยนะคะ Thank you very much Mr. Martha Koskalen. Does anyone has any question for Mr. Martha right here? มีใครมีคำถามที่จะถามไหมคะถ้าว่ามีคำถามยกมือขึ้นได้เลยนะคะมีไหมเอ่ยมีไหมคะโอเคด้านนู้นเลยค่ะถามภาษาไทยก็ได้นะคะถ้าหากว่าไม่สะดวกนะคะ
ไม่เป็นไรค่ะสะดวกค่ะ
โอเค
Your RiverBox is very impressive but I do have one little question that is bugging me why you using fluorescent light to grow them right in the container
So we've used both fluorescent and LEDs.
Sorry?
Fluorescent and LEDs.
LEDs, okay. That's isn't that creating more carbon footprint?
Yeah.
And I mean, in Thailand, we have abundance of sunlight. Do you have any plan to use, like, you know, maybe in Southeast Asia, you know, to grow them outdoors? Because where I worked, we have the raceway pond to grow algae. But I mean, it's, of course, in terms of area, you probably have greater, you know, you know what I mean.
Productivity.
And you don't need so much water. That is a good thing, because if we use suspension, we need to find a way to discard them or treat the water. So that's only one thing that is bugging me, you know, about the light source.
Of course. So our system was actually first designed to go outdoor in a farming field. But being in Canada, we don't have good sunlight, and we have the temperature.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can absolutely use sunlight, whether it's to grow them outdoors, similar to a raceway, or you could use something like solar panels or a wind turbine to take the system off the grid. Because at the end of the day, you are correct in that using lights to grow it does create more carbon footprint.
Does anyone have any questions at the back of there?
I can.
comparing to the under the water in the ocean, I think that is more cooler. So what happened, or what is the solution for this?
So this is the beauty of using local strains of algae. Think of algae that grow along the shoreline. When the tide goes out, there are a lot of algae that get left exposed to the sun, and they just sit there and they cook and they cook and they cook. Or if they're in the small little tidal pools, that gets very, very hot. But if we let nature do what is done for billions of years, you start to see that there are algae that have evolved to be okay with this. The worst case scenario is that you would get a slowed down growth rate during that really high temperature period. So we've actually tested the strain of algae that we primarily grow in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada. We've tested that one strain of algae from 2 degrees Celsius up to 35 degrees Celsius, and it's never died. In 2.5 years, we've never had to clean the system, fix the system, or change out the algae. So the simple answer would be use a local strain of algae that has evolved to have that adaptation and that ability to withstand a large temperature variability.
ค่ะขอบคุณสำหรับคำถามแล้วก็คำตอบจากมิสเตอร์มาเธอร์ด้วยนะคะสำหรับท่านใดมีคำถามเพิ่มเติมไหมคะ If anyone else has any more questions, you can take them backstage. Over there, please.
Algae เป็นแพลงก์ต้นชนิดหนึ่งใช่ไหมครับ Algae คือแพลงก์ต้นชนิดหนึ่ง
Is algae a kind of a plankton?
Certain algae can be a plankton in the water. There's algae that grow attached to substrates, like on the bottom of a river or a rock in the ocean, or else floating in the ocean as well.
ใช่ค่ะไทยแปดโดยเมื่อสักครู่นี้ใช่ไหมคะ Can you please say that again, please?
Yes,
I forgot that I have to
It
translate
is,
that too.
Yeah, it's a photosynthetic plankton.
ใช่ค่ะจะเป็นเหมือนกันค่ะอย่างที่คิดไว้เลยนะคะศัพท์เฉพาะบางส่วนนี้อาจจะแปลไม่ครบนะคะต้องขออภัยด้วยจริง
Oh, so you can reach us at our website, which is just sabertech.ca. The info will get sent to me, or you can reach out to Corsac or Dr. Karsade. And also, I'm here all day, and I can hand out business cards and leave some here so that you can all get in touch with me.
โอเคตอนนี้โอเคอีกคำถามหนึ่งแล้วกันนะคะก่อนที่เราไปพักเบรกค่ะ
So I still lucky. Everybody here is scientist. My question is a management business model. From your startup idea, at the first, you just thinking and you write the business planning and going to the funding agent, or you do it yourself. I mean, just start from searching the algae from the environments and make pilot plans, and then you when you success with the first step, and you going to to talk with the entrepreneur or something else. Which way you do about your business?
So I had kind of a random beginning. When I was working for the government of Canada, we were doing algae research. It was the first time in my life I had ever done anything with algae. And I started to see what the problem was in the industry. And so I came up with this idea of how to grow the algae. And then completely randomly, I bumped into a venture capitalist. And we entered into a competition. And that taught us how to write a business plan. And we got to work with the investors and mentors and learn how to develop all the documents needed to start the business. And then we got a seed investment and just started to go. So it's kind of a combination of everything. I think as a startup, if one thing doesn't work, you try a different option. So there's no one solution to it. So we went from 1, so myself, to 13 in 1 year, and then we expanded out to 7 collaborators, giving us, I think, 35 people working on the project, and then we started going internationally, and now I don't even know how many people we have with us. There's so many partnerships that we have going, both within Canada and the US and Europe and Asia, that it's growing and growing and growing every single day. So, but the core team is around 13.
ค่ะโอเคสำหรับท่านใดที่มีคำถามเพิ่มเติมนะคะเดี๋ยวเราไปถามนอกรอบได้นะคะเพราะว่าตอนนี้ presentation ต่อไปของเราพร้อมแล้วนะคะ Alright ladies and gentlemen please give a big round of applause again for Mr. Martha Koskalen the President and CEO of FoodTech Inc. ค่ะต้องขอขอบคุณด้วยนะคะ One of the phrases that I remember is that without nature, we won't exist, which is very important. So now we're going to move on to the next one before we take a break. We have to apologize because break is not done yet right now. So we're going to move on.